We're only as fast as our weakest link. So that's all I'm saying.
That's not true at all. Please don't say that. There is a scenario that is absolutely not the truth. A bear can be chasing two people, and the slowest one is going to be the one that dies. All right, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
That's what I said.
I shut up. Wait, you said it's only as good as the weakest link.
Yeah, so we had to kill off the weakest link with the bear.
Oh, okay. Hey, okay, I agree. I don't know how this works.
I think honestly I'm gonna put this at the beginning instead.
Shut the up! Don't you dare! I swear to God.
Well, let's hop right into it. So today we're talking about Last of Us, and for those who are watching Last of Us or have played the game, this is a post-apocalyptic show starring the amazing Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. Has to do with a zombie outbreak that happens and wipes out the entire U.S. within one day, and it's all based around this fictional, quote-unquote, fungus. It's not fictional at all, actually. So I kind of want to hop right into this and just say, first off, Steve and Ryan and I, we're not scientists. We're not experts. We're not doctors. If you're looking for a very scientific explanation of what this is, we're going to do our best, but we're going to have a lot of fun with this too.
We're absolutely not going to do our best to be scientific, but we will do our best to make it entertaining.
Yeah, we'll do our best to make it entertaining, but...
and this is going to be very spoiler free, by the way.
Yeah.
We're not going to go into a lot of the things that happen in the show, mostly for you, but also because Bonsai over here isn't caught up as well. So don't be worried about hearing something that might happen in the show or might happen in the game.
Yeah, we won't ruin anything for you. Spoiler free episode of hey, can Last of Us actually happen? So, for those that don't know, the fungi that Last of Us is based off of, it's actually a real fungi. It's called ophiocordyceps, and it's a genus of fungi that primarily infects insects, mostly ants. There's hundreds and hundreds of different strains of this, and the way it works is it's been evolving with ants for millions and millions of years, and the fungi will actually infect an ant and then change the behavior of the ant itself to make it leave its colony. It'll climb up a plant leaf and make the ant latch onto the leaf, where a mushroom will sprout from its head, and the mushroom will then explode and then therefore spread more of its spores, and the process continues. And that is the circle of life, everybody, and nature is beautiful and metal.
Like, that's just something that happens in nature. And like, I've read that so many times now as like we've looked at the show and we've done our research on this and stuff. But even still, when you say that, does that not just sound insane?
Yeah.
Like this mushroom, this fungus infects an ant, makes it climb up, sprout a mushroom out of its head, and then it explodes. Like that is science fiction. That's some John Hurt fucking alien shit.
And it exists in our world. I say this time and time again on the podcast. I always want the world to be a bit more interesting. This is an actual real world thing that's actually out there. And I'm sure you're all tuning in to wonder, like, hey, can this actually happen? We will get into why it can or cannot happen in the episode. But initially, when you, how long have you guys known about cordyceps? When did you first initially hear about them? Did you play the game first and then hear about them, or...
So I think the game, they weren't, if I remember right, the game wasn't cordyceps exactly. Like they never really like truly specified. It was in the show now that they've specified that it's cordyceps. But I mean, I have heard of some of that ant behavior before, like the parasitic nature of some fungus, but not to the extent of when we saw the show come out, the game come out, and then, looked more into research about how that really affects insects. So,
gotcha.
I, on the other hand, have only heard about this in one of those crazy, stranger than fiction nature videos or like something on Facebook, to be honest with you.
The David Attenborough thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to even attempt his voice, but I loved listening to him talk about nature. And I heard about this sort of thing, and you're right. It immediately conjured up visions of Alien, the chest burster, the face hugger, which basically, and I need you to understand this: the face hugger was a face fucker. That's what that was.
They intentionally made it sexual. Yeah.
Yeah, they fucked it. They fucked the person in the face, deposited their eggs in the body, and then it burst from their chest. And so for me, like immediately the idea that it's like, oh, there's spores in me that make me do things, and then they pop out of my head and I explode into spreading further. Like it's just, yeah, it's very, very scary.
It's very body horror. It's very like there's something very macabre about it. I've never it's never sat well with me. The concept of your normal guy or gal, and then you get turned into something that you have no control of. That's always scared me as a kid. Zombies have always scared me. Yeah, it's terrifying. I
mean, to be fair, there's a lot of things in the world that'll make you kind of feel inhuman. Sometimes it's a little bit, chest burster, cordyceps. Sometimes it's IBS, like, because when you need to poop, you feel like a different person. You're like, I gotta poop now, and you can't react the same way as you would as a normal person. A normal person would be like, I'll eventually get there, but as a person with IBS,
are you telling us you need to poop right now?
Yeah, do you need to step away, man?
No,
we can.
I will let you know. I feel like a normal person right now. All I'm saying is that as a person who has suffered through IBS, it's a different animal. You'll never know until you're old enough to feel that pain.
There's just information that I generally don't offer up until I'm asked.
I'm going to offer you guys all of the information. Cut it as you see fit, but this is what you have for me.
No,
right
if you look at just to go a different direction, if you look at images of these ants that are infected with this cordyceps, it really does, like, you can see the inspiration that they took for The Last of Us and how these zombies, which zombies is such a weird word in this concept to me, but essentially that's what they are. But you can see where that inspiration comes from, and it's genuinely freaky to see. And so that makes you think, like, if it can happen to insects, right? Like, what is to stop it? And they go into that a little bit at the beginning of episode 1 of The Last of Us about how, like, certain changes in climate and how things adapt. And we see that so much in other viruses and parasites and stuff as well. Like, these things adapt and change.
So when in this scenario, like, because I haven't played the game, I haven't watched the show, I haven't seen what any of it looks like. So do they still look human but kind of like drooly, or are we talking like they turn into actual mushrooms?
So it's based off of how long they've been infected for in the show, of course, in the show lore. Now a lot of the research I did, they did speculate what kind of would actually happen to your body if that were to if this were to be a thing. It's all speculation, because for something like this to happen to humans, they didn't say it can't, is the thing. Every research that I have read, they never say a hard no that this is impossible. They always use words like implausible, might happen.
Yeah. That's because they're good scientists.
Yeah, that's because they don't deal in absolutes.
Right.
And
so under this circumstance, the scientists are Sith.
No. They're only Sith deal in absolutes.
Oh,
Scientists
so they're Jedi.
don't.
So they're Jedi. Okay, sorry, I can't remember all of my.
But that
lore
statement is an absolute, so it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Right.
But so let's go over a few things that would have to happen if this were to, like, if they were able to gestate in humans and turn us infected. But to hurry and answer your question, Bonsai, the way that they did look. When you're first initially infected, you still look human. The big disturbing thing this is spoiler free, by the way, but this is about as close to the show as I'll get, is that the person is still very much alive, but inside his head, but the motor functions are lost.
Mm-hmm.
A few months go by, then you turn into a stalker. Mushrooms start growing out of your face, and then a year or so goes by, bursts out of the top of your head, and you're now what in the show is called a clicker. So basically, you eventually turn into basically a mushroom person,
Okay.
based off of the lore in the show.
Just like Toad.
Just like Toad. Exactly.
I've
Toad.
seen some things on the internet that would make me agree with that statement.
And can I just segue? Actually, no, this is for an after hours episode. I'll save that for later. I'll edit that out. But so
you're really gonna blue ball me like that? Really?
Yeah, dude.
I think I know where he was going. It was Pedro Pascal as Mario.
Yep, it was. I would say I would watch that movie more than I'd watch the actual Mario movie that's coming out.
Didn't he just do the Mario Kart thing?
Yeah, the whole Mario Kart bit, and which
good.
it looks like a better Mario movie than the actual Mario movie. But anyway, back on track. So let's go over a few things that would have to happen if it needed to have the fungus actually infect a human, basically. I mean, first, the fungus would need to have the appropriate enzymatic and metabolic pathways, this is from an article, by the way, to infect and grow in human tissues. Cordyceps species that infect insects have a different set of enzymes and metabolic, pathways compared to those that infect humans, and the fungus would need to evolve these pathways in order to infect humans. So currently cordyceps are set to only affect this strain of ants, and there are different strains of cordyceps that will affect different strains of ants, and that's what scientists have found so far. From what I've read in my research, there's about 35 different sets of cordyceps that will affect 35 different species of insects, but they do speculate there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different strains of fungi that behave in the same way.
So that shows you already how they adapt, right? If there's all these different strains and they affect different ants, it's because they adapted to affect the ants that were around them. So say this got consolidated around no more ants, they would probably evolve to the next insect that they could get their hands on, right? Like,
correct.
And so on and so forth. So as our climate changes and species die out or move or whatever, I think that's where some of the plausibility comes into hand, right? Like, I think humans are probably last on the list, but
I see that's where I come in, is like under that circumstance, under the understanding of how that works, is yes, you can ultimately say that it is implausible, but it is not impossible. But in those circumstances, it's more likely that it's going to be millions of billions of years before it can actually match up to the enzymes and everything required to actually be an infector for humans. Like you're talking, they're starting on ants, and there's thousands of strains, and not all of them affect the same thing. And you're talking about a life form like humans, a life form that has existed for a long time as well, millions of years,
Yes.
and it hasn't struck into that zone yet, where there is
because it hasn't needed to.
Right. So let the ants fucking have them.
Until they wipe out all the ants, and then they move on to the next species and wipe those out, and eventually, over hundreds of years, it's just us in the cordyceps.
I exist in a world full of antifungals. If I can cure athlete's foot, I can cure cordyceps.
You're gonna wear a MAFA hat, make America fungus again.
Like I order from. Oh, okay. I'm gonna say this joke because I feel like it's a little bit like inappropriate. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but like I order the hat from like China, and it just comes back as "Make America Fun Again."
Mm-hmm. Make America fungus again.
No.
You don't.
I don't want fungus among us. All right.
So, it's funny. Fungus. That's actually the name of another famous fungus. Kind of. But so yeah, that's the first hurdle that it would have to hit. It would have to burn through. It'd have to be under the right circumstance. It would have to be a very, very set circumstance over a long period of time to get something even remotely close to like that happening. And I don't know if this is how evolution really works or not. In a very, very specific situation, in where a 1 in a billion chance where everything matched up for a million years, then yeah, they're kind of saying that, yeah, that could kind of happen. So we're not out of the woods yet.
That's not fair. Like, if you gave us endless amounts of time, then yes, absolutely, it could happen. But what people are mostly concerned about is if it can happen within recent years, like within a recent time bubble.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
don't think that's possible.
It's crazy how quickly Steven became a scientist.
Yeah.
Look,
You got Neil deGrasse Bonsai over here.
I'm not a scientist, but I just have a lot of disbelief. I have a lot of skepticism about cordyceps. As a matter of fact, this brings into
I'm not a scientist. I just carry a lot of doubt.
I need to experiment. Like, look, experiments are made to decide truth. They are not made. It's not truth made to decide doubt. So that's how it works. Actually, I don't actually fucking know. But I'm gonna say this: is you yourself posted a nutritional supplement that included a lot of ingredients, including cordyceps fungi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a kind of a coffee alternative company that makes a beverage that
Mudwater
is made up of a lot of
not a sponsor.
Yeah, that's why I didn't name them, dude. They're not paying me. But they have a lot of different fungus, like different mushrooms and stuff that make up a beverage. It's supposed to give you energy. It's supposed to be a good alternative to coffee. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to them, and I was like, when will we learn it has cordyceps in it?
This is how you train them. I will argue that. It's like, don't put it in our bodies, you dicks. That's how it happens faster.
So now we're on the topic of ingesting cordyceps and everything. And let's just say in that perfect scenario that all the insects that cordyceps can infect are gone. And now that they move and they somehow they have a source of humans next to them that they can evolve over with for the next million years. Okay, let's say that they get to that stage. The next thing that the cordyceps need to get over is that they would need to overcome the human immune system. So humans have a complex immune system that's designed to fight off foreign invaders, including fungi. Cordyceps would need to evolve mechanisms to evade or suppress the human immune system in order to establish an infection. So that's like hurdle 2 that needs to happen here.
I mean, you would tell me this exact same thing for every parasite, virus, bacteria out there in the world that hasn't infected humans yet, right? And things that you would have told me that 10 years ago for things that just affected them recently, right? Like, you're like, oh, they would have to adapt to our immune systems, and they would need to be in a controlled environment. I'm not arguing that like this is going to happen in our lifetime or even in like next 100 years.
I hope you are, because I would love for you to.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, we never see something coming until like it's there, right? Like, it's always like, well, it would have to go through all these hurdles, right? Like COVID, and then
I have this is a great like comparable story. This is how everybody got ligma.
We're not falling for your jokes, Steven.
But to be fair, also. Okay, all balls jokes aside, thank you for like humoring that moment in my life. If you're actually talking about most pandemics and things like that, there is also a really unfortunate thing that happens. I don't like to bring it up, but it is we usually are a very adaptable species, and we have an acceptable loss to learn how to combat a disease. It's such a horrible thing to say out loud, but the reality is in most pandemics that we have experienced, like Spanish flu, COVID, AIDS, varying degrees of maladies, we accept a certain amount of loss to learn about it so that the overall loss is not exponential. Like in a lot of cases of post-apocalypse, I don't feel like it's actually very realistic in portrayal, because we would allow enough people to die to learn about the disease to combat it before the population drops below a specific level. A lot of times it's like you said in The Last of Us, like this fungus took over and killed the human race in a day. That is extremely unlikely.
Yes, and you are absolutely right.
So you know how it happens in the show, right? Like it
spoiler free.
It's technically a day. I mean, like this is first episode stuff, and it's not even something that's covered in the game at all. But what happens is there is it evolves in Jakarta, and infects a human, and then somehow it gets to a worker who works in like
Flour,
a grain supply.
yeah.
And that they're one of the largest grain suppliers in the world, and so it got into pretty much all the grain that got shipped out all over the world. And so there wasn't like a, okay, well, let's just shut off Jakarta. Like, it was everywhere by the time they found out.
So and on the note of that whole grain theory that they presented, expert has like multiple accounts and multiple articles that I've read. Experts say that cordyceps in their current state right now cannot produce in flour. It would be too dry. So that's a bit fictiony. You know, they needed a way to get it to spread and everything. That's fine. Now, one thing I want to talk about is since, let's say it did happen and everything just spread wildfire, and it happened as it did in the show. Here's what I think the main difference would be in real life. I think there would be a lot more of half of people would take it seriously, and the other half would be fake newsing it.
Absolutely. And I think that probably like we've only seen bits and pieces of like the backstory in the show. Like, I guarantee if they probably got down into it, like, that's what would happen, or that's what happened. And
I want to see it. I was actually kind of hoping. Anyway, sorry, I was getting into geek mode.
No, get into geek mode. Get into fucking geek mode. You shut your mouth and get back into geek mode, and you talk your face off.
It wouldn't be like, what do we need to do about this? It would be like Americans blaming China, and like China like not wanting to tell the world that it even exists, and like Russia trying to just like hack our fucking stock market because we're too caught up with the zombie apocalypse.
And absolutely, you have to cut over to Zach and Keaton figuring out the right amount of cordyceps to smoke so you can access the right part of your brain to know how to find the perfect wave. It's gonna be fucking awesome, dude.
You're gonna have the My Pillow guy being like, yeah, doing his thing. Yeah, it'll be. Yeah.
Oh, but my only word of doubt to this was, and the rest of this, I'm totally on board that this will happen next year. But my only word of doubt would be, if this was possible like in like even the near future, it would 100% be weaponized and used against us.
100%.
But that's a terrible weapon. Let's be honest. All right, it's a fucking terrible weapon. You don't have control over that weapon. It's just like, that's like them weaponizing zombie apocalypse mode. Like, they're zombies, they eat brains, and they spread to everyone under the sun. Let's shoot it at another country. So what? It can spread to our country eventually.
So if you want to get technical, nuclear weapons are kind of terrible idea as well.
Let's be real. Biological and mass destructive weapons are a terrible idea.
Now,
they will never stop anybody from trying to weaponize them.
We don't need something that big. Just give everyone a knife, and the population will figure itself out.
Now, I don't think it's going to be weaponizing. So, not to quote Cassian Andor in Rogue One, you guys have been fighting this for now. I've been fighting. I've known about cordyceps since like college, and when you're 18 years old, Steven's gone. It's okay. At least he didn't leave the chat room this time.
He's
pooping. It's okay. We'll just cut away the camera. No, cut to empty chair. So train of thought. Oh yeah. So I heard about it in high school and everything. And what I initially heard about is they were using these cordyceps, which by the zombie ants thing were spreading. The internet wasn't as like out there quite yet.
Sure.
The biggest thing we heard was like, yeah, did you hear that they're total like schoolyard bullshit? Did you hear that they're taking the fungus that makes ants into zombies and using it to spray crops? They were using they were making pesticides with it. And then that's when like the first like viral thing I see on the internet where people were using is like, you want zombies? Because that's how you get zombies.
I mean, yeah.
It's gonna, like, honestly, I don't think it's gonna happen. If it were to happen, I don't think it's gonna be an evolutionary thing that happens. I think it's honestly gonna be more of a, like,
A CRISPR thing.
a CRISPR thing. We put some plutonium next to it or something. I don't know, something, a meteor, like something that's out of our realm of knowledge will make
A meteor. We're gonna get like symbiotes.
yes. Like, I think so. Based off of the research I've done, I think it's more plausible that would happen than it happening naturally through evolution.
I want you to know.
I agree.
I want you to know something really important. All I heard was that I've known about cordyceps since college, and I am offended that you do not understand. I have been on this earth longer than both of you.
Oh,
and
God, here we go.
I remember back in Germany in the 90s, maybe even the early 90s, watching Hello Kitty Adventures, and she consumed a poisonous mushroom and almost died. And my life almost ended in that moment. It was a 2-part episode. Episode 1 ended. I was broken. This is my first experience.
Seen Last of Us Part 1 and 2.
Absolutely.
I didn't know it was a remake.
It is a remake.
They were just upset. They were like, we need to make it dark and gritty. We can't have Hello Kitty and Pochacho and Karopi in here trying to, like, sell people on this potential apocalypse. We need to get Pedro Pascal.
I love that you know all the characters' names.
I love Hello Kitty. That's actually a fact. Yeah.
So,
you're like, moving on.
Moving on now. We're gonna reel this back in a little bit here. Ryan, you were gonna say something?
If you're good to move on a little bit, I was gonna say, you're right. I don't see like cordyceps or even another type of fungus being like what does this in, right? But there are 100 other things out there that have potentially brain altering capabilities that are more likely to spread to humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're ready to go there.
Yeah, we can talk. Yeah, you're talking about what's it called? Toxoplasmosis. Yeah.
Oh, a toxic plasma cannon. Got it. Yeah.
So it's already been so if you own a cat or you've worked in a veterinary field, you've more than likely heard about toxoplasmosis. It's really dangerous parasite that affects felines. But what has happened that scientists have studied for years and years now is in the wild, bobcats or whatever, wild felines will get infected with toxoplasmosis, and it will be excreted in their feces. And then it gets into the water or into some food or whatever, and wild wolves will actually go ingest some of that water or that food and end up getting infected with this toxoplasmosis as well. And it affects them way differently. It causes them to be overly aggressive. It causes them to act against their nature. It will cause them to leave their pack completely that they've been with their whole life. And they don't know precisely if it's because they're just leaving to
die,
wander, or because they've been forced out of their pack because of their aggression by the rest of the pack. But they'll end up joining another pack, and there is it's like a 1 in 46 chance that when they leave and join a new pack, they will become the alpha in that new pack because of their aggression.
So that's where all the alpha mailers are coming from. Toxoplasmosis.
They're parasites.
The thing that I read about it was that since it starts in cats, is that mice get affected by it, and they are the big carriers. And the scientists had did some studies on these specific mice, and this the way it alters their behavior is it makes them more susceptible to like walk towards their own death in a way. So it'll do this. It'll do this via nature and psychologically, where like they are less scared of cats' scent. Cat urine doesn't affect them, doesn't deter them at all. They're actually kind of drawn to it if they have toxoplasmosis. And so toxoplasmosis is actually dormant in a lot of humans, actually. And it can be dormant. No, it can be dormant your entire life, or it cannot. And they've actually done studies with people who people that they know that have toxoplasmosis, where they'd have them smell cat urine. And I can't give you the exact number of the data, but people who were infected with the toxoplasmosis, a higher percentage of them were unbothered by the smell of cat urine than people who weren't infected with it.
I just imagine this entire scenario. They're like, oh yeah, I'm ready to breed. Let's fucking go. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. Do that what you will. But the reality is, wouldn't it be like a weird concept that things like Andrew Tate and this alpha male kind of like thing that's pushed a lot lately is born out of something like toxic plasmosis, plasma cannon.
He just spent too much time around litter boxes, man.
Look, Steven, and and look at us guys, and we're here saying we're not scientists. Okay?
We're solving the world's
we
problems.
Figured it out. We cracked the code, baby.
One comment at a time.
Keep these young men away from litter boxes.
Yes, that's what's happening.
Stop licking.
No
cats'
more Me
asses.
Too.
Oh man. But no,
Lord. It's all the supplements they're taking. It's cordyceps.
I mean, no. It's the reality is like there's so much in the world that really kind of like doesn't make sense. Toxoplasmosis is one of them, but I also would actually equate that with like CTE. As you know, CTE is something that is basically built out of chronic trauma, like to the brain, whether it be football or other full contact sports, accidents. A lot of times, like what I actually encounter talking with some friends and things like that is like CTE comes up in boxing, football, sporting events, but it doesn't really cover a lot of the cases where people who are in accidents are also subject to these kinds of effects. And the reality is, if you look at the numbers of actual pedestrian to car accidents, car to car accidents, absolutely just accidental falls, these all can contribute to adjustments to the brain. So it's weird to think that, honestly, it takes a small tick, sometimes a little bit of a bigger tick, but maybe a small tick, to turn a brain into a wild animal. A perfect, they talk about studying this because they don't understand it. The brain is this little piece of flesh in our heads that does shit for us automatically without us understanding. It covers instinctual, it covers actual like consciousness, and there's these things that can happen to us that make us do things we would not normally do. There's football players, wrestlers, things like that have like literally killed their family members, gone on chases and murdered people, and like done these crazy things they would never do normally if their brains weren't affected that way. But it's also proof positive that it's there already. Like the potential for that is there already. It's just the right push, whether it's trauma to the cerebral cortex, a fungus possibly, or some kind of bacteria or parasite that gets in and influences that in a certain way. There's hormones, different things like that can take effect and really make us move a different direction than we would normally do. Hell, some people would argue that like estrogen and testosterone treatments can also do the same thing. So it ultimately, I actually think the biggest threat across the board for anyone is not fungus or anything else. It's the human brain. We are capable of this from the get-go. It's just who unlocks the door with the right key.
Yeah.
So the only thing that can save us is to get mass lobotomies.
Is that what you're saying?
Smoke a lot of weed. Smoke fuck tons of weed.
I'm safe then.
No, but seriously, like obviously there's a lot of situational things that can happen to your brain, whether it's smoking a lot of weed or whether it's getting in a car accident or getting hit too hard in football or whatever, right? That can cause an effect on the brain. But I think the main focus here is things that can happen in your normal day-to-day life without any kind of trauma or the active things you're doing to affect your brain yourself. Like whether it is ingesting some grain that has cordyceps in it that's evolved, or whether it is, just happening to be around some cat feces and getting toxoplasmosis. And like those are the scary things, right? Because those are the things that we can't predict until it's too late. And whether it's one of those or whether it is some other kind of parasite, I think parasite's most likely. and to have that spread. I talked about this. I coughed about this earlier, but just to see our response to COVID-19 and how it basically shut everything down. And it was new, but it was something that we had similarly dealt with before. If something new came along and shut us down and made it where people were aggressive, made it where people like lost brain function, not just got sick and were in the hospital, couldn't breathe, but actually started affecting brain function at this level, like it would be crippling. I mean, I don't know that we would have what it takes to stop it if it spread at the scale that something like coronavirus
Yeah.
did.
And I don't think it would be. Sorry to cut you off, Stephen. I just don't think it would be as much of as like here. This is the plausible part for me. Is I don't think it would be a zombie situation. I think it would be a behavioral change. You're not going to be dealing with like undead. There's not going to be corpses. I think you're going to be dealing with behavioral changes. And this is all theory, by the way. And you can correct me in the comments if you want on this. This is just three dudes shooting the shit about it. But I honestly think like if something that were to spread like that it's more plausible that it would just make people just a bit more aggressive and violent than the fact that they're zombies, full-on zombies, you know.
But the brain is a powerful organ, man, dude, that it can make us almost superhuman under the right circumstances. I mean, hell, you see people smoke PCP and like lift something 4 times their body weight, right? It's not because it made them stronger, it's just because their brain function is just out of control.
Absolutely. And I'd like to point out, like, it doesn't matter even necessarily the influx of drugs or bacterium or viruses or anything like that. Sometimes our own beliefs, our own passionate beliefs, will make us do absolutely bonkers shit. I want to give this one.
Is this a Tulpas episode?
No, it isn't, you fucking asshole. I swear to God, I regret talking about Tulpas with you motherfuckers. I just watched an episode of Supernatural. Fuck off. The reality is that coronavirus, like the feelings about coronavirus and the spread of coronavirus actually made grown adults cough onto the handles of like supermarket freezers, so people couldn't get into. They're like, oh, you're so scared of getting getting in touch with it, you can't get into your frozen hash browns now, you know.
Yeah,
that level of crazy is something else, but you can't point to anything besides own human passion and just kind of like dedication and vigor and everything. Just shut up. Sorry.
I honestly think I would be definitely more. I always say this: if the world had a zombie apocalypse, like a real zombie apocalypse, I always say this: if they were shufflers, easy mode, we got them. You know, if they're runners, we're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
So
ain't that
I
the
feel
truth?
like let's say, none of us do cardio.
I was thinking the same thing. It's like we're not getting away.
No. We're not, but hear me out. Like if they were shufflers, I think we'd have the infected on lockdown. You know, if you've read World War Z, just the book, not the stupid movie. If you read that, I think we'd execute something like the Rediker plan, and we'd be good. It's the people I would be actually more terrified of than because I always say this about ghosts, like when people, because I'm notorious for not believing in ghosts. My friends are like, we'll go in a haunted house and see how you feel. I'm like, I'm not scared of ghosts. I'm scared of getting stabbed by a homeless person. You know, it's so it's like people scare me more than.
No, I mean, once it was bad enough that law was not able to be like properly handled, then you're gonna have these little tribes, and you're gonna have people like really showing who they are once they don't have anything to stop them. And you're right. I think that's the scariest part of any kind of apocalyptic scenario, not even a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a bunch of golfers in Las Vegas away from their wives? Those guys are assholes. Like, seriously, you take away law and order from an average human, they're going to turn into assholes.
That's a very specific situation. You can't use that like everyone's going to know that. What do you mean golfers in Las Vegas away from their wives? That's a very specific situation.
Steven, if you know, you know. Man.
No, I don't know shit.
You know.
I don't know shit.
Please, if you've made it this far into the episode. Please comment so I can prove Steven wrong.
No,
Please.
don't even just deal with this guy. All I gotta say is that all the bread making I did during COVID has made me sufficient for a zombie apocalypse. I don't need anybody. I want to make bread and just like jack off in the woods, whatever. I don't fucking care.
Until you get some of that cordyceps grain, and then it's all over.
Man, then it's over, and then we got fun guy Steven.
I am a fun guy.
Okay. So
this episode has been so chaotic. Like, truly living up to the name tonight.
To be honest with you, I've actually enjoyed it.
It's great. It's great. We're not even remotely done. Don't pretend like 40 minutes is good enough.
Oh, it's gonna have to be. So I do kind of want to hear like ultimate final thoughts as we start to wind down. Do you believe it would happen? Would you believe it would happen in more a timely manner, or is this hogwash BS? We have nothing to worry about.
I'll let Steven go first so I can prove him wrong.
Okay, absolutely. Hogwash BS, it's not going to happen. Please, even with millions of years, I do not believe it would happen because humans have evolved to a point where we can actually counteract a lot of things that we have threatening us. So I do not think that something that requires such specific environments can actually develop enough to challenge us. We have antifungals, we have antibacterials, we have antivirals. We have so many things in the mix. Literally, the human race would rather firebomb our entire internal system with antibiotics than actually get targeted. So even before we get targeted on our adversaries, we would rather just burn the entire fucking thing to the ground than worry about that kind of concept. Like, for those that don't know, if you take an antibiotic, it does kill bacteria, both the good and bad bacteria in your body. So again, like, we will firebomb the shit out of anything that threatens us for the greater good. And I don't believe that something like cordyceps could ever evolve, adapt, or do any of that to threaten us and put us in a pseudo zombie apocalypse where human mushrooms try to, like, I guess, eat the other people. I don't really understand the full concept, but hey, no mushroom people for this guy, because it's not happening.
I disagree. I not so much about the mushroom. I agree that the whole cordyceps and you know transforming us into zombie mushroom people is fairly unlikely, at least for a million years, right? Like until some situational thing creates that vacuum where it can happen. But what I do believe is that every few years we have some new illness or ailment that comes along that was not anticipated by the majority, right? Maybe a small group of scientists that have been studying this that nobody was listening to, but by the majority didn't see it coming. And I think they keep getting worse and worse. And there will eventually be something that affects brain function. And whether that makes us go crazy or what, I think that is definitely in the realm of possibility, and it's hard to say otherwise. And once that happens, I think we will be very hard to stop it if it is a contagious thing. Because once you start talking about brain function, like if I'm a scientist and I get COVID, I can, besides being on a ventilator for a few days, I can get back to work. If it's something that affects brain function, you're talking about shutting down people as a whole.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So I actually have a response to that a little bit. Is I actually feel like it's less like this, like kind of doom and gloom. The whole thing goes down. I think that actually really kind of folds into the idea that the Earth can only support so many biological functions, and what's happening. Like I'm really like kind of spinning into weird zone. So forgive me for this, but I think that like overpopulation has not occurred in the way that everybody projected it to happen when I was younger, because there's only so much space. There's only so much things that can happen. And the entire Earth and everything, the ecosystem works like a giant body. We are part of it, and it will kill off and get rid of and reduce something that's going to harm it in the end. And
right, which could be people.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I do not think that people will ultimately 100% be eliminated. I think they will be reduced to a manageable state.
My other, I agree. My other retort to your first comment about people have, especially now here in this day and age, we do have the ability to do a lot of amazing things that we didn't in the past, right?
Mhm.
We can come up with vaccines and stuff. I've never doubted humans' ability to solve any problem. I've doubted us actually doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in this day and age. I mean, we still see people talking about COVID vaccines like they're made by the government to control us. Years after, it's been years now, and
Yeah.
I just don't trust people. Do I trust what we're capable of doing? Absolutely. Do I trust what we do? Not at all.
I can. I'll go for. Go for it, Steven.
I agree with Ryan on this on one front, because the creator of penicillin had the opportunity to monetize that, like, I guess, solution to a lot of like illnesses, and opted not to. And if you look at some later like kind of documentaries and things, like there are people in pharmaceutical companies that literally like degrade that decision. Like,
of course they do.
You had the opportunity to make fuck tons of money, and you just decided to do it for the greater good. Are you fucking insane?
Yeah.
That's a nuts thought.
And to be honest with you, I can share Ryan's sentiment on it. I do believe in humanity. I actually am a firm believer in humanity. If we stopped like puking all of our money towards these giant steeples dedicated to our imaginary friends, I think we could do a lot more things with and productive things. However, I do agree with Ryan on the fact of like we're only as fast as our weakest link. So that's all I'm saying.
That's not true at all. Please don't say that. There is a scenario that is absolutely not the truth. A bear can be chasing two people, and the slowest one is going to be the one that dies. All right, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
That's what I said.
I shut up. Wait, you said it's only as good as the weakest link.
Yeah. So we had to kill off the weakest link with the bear.
Oh, okay. Hey, okay, I agree. I don't know.
I think honestly, I'm gonna put this at the beginning instead.
Shut the fuck up! Don't you dare! I swear to God, I am tired. I am drunk, and I was pretty sure you were saying that we need to spare the weakest link, but it turns out you are a survival of the fittest kind of guy, and you were like, "Fuck the weakest link. Let the bear eat him. We're good to go."
Hey, look, I'm a very empathetic and compassionate person, but I do hate stupid people. So
you're compassionate and empathetic as you run away as the other guy is eaten.
You hate purposefully ignorant people, I believe is what you mean.
Okay, Ryan, good for you. Okay, thank you for saving grace. Don't at me in the comments. Okay.
All right,
guys. So I think it's a good time to kind of wind down the episode. We appreciate you for listening to the madness.
What a weird
that was today's episode. Oh, it was a good one. I loved it. If you haven't, if you want to support the channel anyway, please buy our merch. I'm sporting some of it right now. Link down below in the description. And if you love the show, please share it out and tell your friends. If you hate the show, keep your mouth shut. Now, that being said, I would like to thank my host, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Steven, thank you so much. And I think that's me ending it.
All right, Steven, time to go back in the cage.
Get back in the cage, Steven.
All right, I'll put the collar back on.
See you guys.
Bye.